Wednesday, July 9th, 2025. You are listening to the Daly Dose Sports Podcast, and I am your host, Clint Daly, coming to you from my high city here in Denver, Colorado, and we are back for another week of talking sports with a dose of common sense. Hey, happy Wednesday to you. I hope you had a good, long, 3-day Independence Day weekend. I hope your week is going well so far, that you, your family, your friends, everyone in your world is staying strong and healthy right now, and I hope that you're returning to work or school or whatever you might have this week with all of your digits still intact after that July 4th weekend. Man, is July 4th getting crazier or is that me? I know I'm not saying get off my lawn. I'm not even complaining about it. I'm just saying there's just way more fireworks now than I ever remember growing up. And in turn, there is a lot more, fire department, ambulance, emergency room visits than we ever had growing up as well. I hate to point this out though. On some level, that is survival of the fittest. If you're that dumb, you might lose a few digits. It's just how that holiday seems to work. But I know July 4th to me was always like the midway point. Like when you got out of school, it was usually like around Memorial Day, you're all excited. When you hit July 4th, you're like, oh, hey, it's halfway over. Summer break is halfway over. You got the rest of July, get into August, you're going to start heading back to school. Summer is going to be gone before we know it. And I know we still have a long, hot summer ahead of us. However, I'm going to give you a little bit encouraging news. Take some heart, because do you realize we now have just 22 days till the preseason Hall of Fame NFL game that no one's going to really watch except for like the first 30 seconds. But we're going to start getting excited, right? Because it's going to mean the NFL is coming back. The Hall of Fame game will be here in 22 days. Okay. That's not bad, but I don't know that I'm not excited for a preseason game. However, we have 45 days until week 0 of the college football season. No, there aren't going to be huge matchups, but there's going to be real live college football in 45 days. Okay. Again, not huge matchups, so I'm not that excited for that, but it's coming. And then we have 52 days until the first real live college football Saturday, like the real week 1, 52 days. It's coming. We have 57 days till the Thursday night NFL opener between the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. And we have just 2 months till the first NFL Sunday begins. Hey, it's coming quicker than you think. 22, 45, 52, 57, 60. But I mean, who's counting, right? Yeah, I can't wait for football season because this is a dry time of year. Just trying to survive right now. Hey, today on the Dose, we have a few news stories taking place that I want to make sure we cover. And then, of course, the NBA offseason has been red hot and is now cooling off. We're going to check in on which teams have actually improved the most and which teams are falling behind. Plus, we will have a Daly Dose Top 5 for you today, and it is actually going to be Major League Baseball flavored. So be sure you stick around for that. But first, let's jump into a little bit of news, and let's jump into the NBA, where we'll spend a lot of time today. But the New York Knicks have officially hired 2-time NBA Coach of the Year winner Mike Brown as their franchise's next head coach. Knicks president Leon Rose underwent a thorough process since they fired Tom Thibodeau in kind of a surprise move about a month ago. Now, the Knicks requested permission to speak with 5 NBA coaches and were denied. Then they interviewed several available coaches and went through multi-round stages with those candidates. Now, I know what you might be expecting here. You might be expecting me to bash Mike Brown, but I actually like Mike Brown. He's a winning coach. He's got a great resume. Brown is a 4-time champion as the top assistant in both Golden State and San Antonio under Steve Kerr and Greg Popovich. And he has coached a number of superstars across 3 decades in the NBA. He's been with the Warriors. He's been with the Spurs. He was with Cleveland. He's with the Lakers. He was also with the Sacramento Kings most recently. Now, this situation in New York is a mess, but this is a good hire. Having said that, this is probably going to end poorly for the Knicks. I'm sorry. I hate to be the bearer of bad tidings, but it probably is. Do you know why? Because there are sports gods. And I know people hear that and they think I'm crazy. Oh, but they're absolutely true. You want proof? Play basketball. Have 4 guys box out. Have 1 guy not. Guess where that ball's going to go? Right to that 1 guy's offensive player. Every time. That's basketball gods. And you know what? Basketball gods don't like it when you fire head coaches that were doing a good job. Hey, you might not like Tom Thibodeau. He might be hard on his players. He was doing a pretty good job. Here's the problem. They didn't fire Tom Thibodeau because of like a disagreement in philosophy or a disagreement in tactics. They fired him because they got greedy and they think they deserve more. You're the Knicks. You don't deserve anything. Sorry to be the bearer of bad tidings again, but you don't deserve nothing. And that might sound insane again, but hey, I've got receipts. You want proof that when you get greedy and want more, it can come back to bite you? Here's a little proof. Philip Fulmer, Tom Flores, Jimmy Johnson, Frank Solich, Tony Dungy, Marty Schottenheimer, George Karl, Dwayne Casey, David Blatt. I can go on and on and on and on. This is probably going to end poorly for the New York Knicks. Because that's just how this works. You're tempting fate. You poked the basketball gods. Good luck, Knicks. I don't see it ending well for you. Staying in the NBA, former NBA player turned ESPN analyst Kendrick Perkins is making some bold statements. And I know I've gone on record as saying Kendrick Perkins might be the dumbest analyst I've ever seen. Yeah, here's further proof. Kendrick Perkins is calling for Karl Anthony Towns with those New York Knicks to lose some weight this offseason. Anybody seen Kendrick Perkins?
I saw a fool idiot on TV talking about the Lakers save the NBA.
Save the NBA?
Yeah. He's an idiot and a fool, but he know who he is. What's his name, Shaq?
Which one are you talking about?
Kendrick Perkins.
Yeah. If you have, then you know. During a recent episode of his Perk Unplugged podcast. By the way, I'm not going to sit here and act like I have the greatest podcast ever, but I promise you, I have more intelligent thoughts than that podcast. Don't ever listen to that. Perkins said he believes the New York Knicks big man needs to specifically lose about 15 pounds if he wants to take his game to a new level this coming season. Here's what Perkins had to say. Genius that he is. Karl Anthony Towns, if I was you, I'd go lose me about 15 pounds. You get about 15 pounds off of you, bro, and you stay consistent. Okay. Now, maybe that's true. I don't know. Towns is listed as 7 feet tall and 248 pounds, which sounds pretty healthy. I don't know that Towns is a fat guy. He's maybe baby fat, just he has a baby face. But according to the body mass index, a person at his height and weight is considered pretty healthy on the rating scale. I mean, he plays a style in which he digs down in the paint a little bit. He's got to be a little bit strong. He needs some muscle mass on him. He also plays out on the perimeter. He's one of the best three-point shooting big men in the NBA. I don't know that his problem is his weight. I'd say his problem is from the neck up. But here's the really weird part. Because I just said, Towns is listed as 7 feet tall, 248 pounds. Perkins, when he played, was listed at 6'10", 270 pounds. Have you seen him lately? He's nowhere near that. Oh, he's 3 spins easy. Now, Perkins was not only one of the heaviest players of his era in the NBA, he averaged 5 points per game. And it wasn't like a small sample size. He played 782 games. Calling Karl Anthony Towns fat. Karl Anthony Towns, a 5-time All-Star, former Rookie of the Year, coming from Perkins? Kendrick Perkins, honest to goodness, he just hurts my brain. I can't even believe he has a job. Oh, but then I remember he has a job with ESPN. Never mind. Of course, it makes sense.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
One last story in the world of boxing. Not sure if you saw this, but famed Mexican boxer Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. was arrested for overstaying his visa and lying on his green card application and is being deported back to Mexico, where he faces, they say, organized crime charges. That is what officials said late last week. The arrest came days after the former middleweight champion lost a fight against influencer turned boxer Jake Paul. That fight took place in Anaheim, California. Now, the Department of Homeland Security said officials determined that Chavez Jr. should be arrested a day before the fight. Not sure why they waited to act for days after the fight. But before his bout with Paul on Saturday, Chavez had fought just once since 2021 because, that guy just has some problems. You might remember he had a pretty lengthy boxing career. Of course, he was the son of Julio Cesar Chavez, one of the most beloved fighters in Mexican history, one of the most beloved athletes in Mexican history, and a member of the International Boxing Hall of Fame who won championships in several different weight classes. But the son is not the father. The son has battled drug addiction for much of his career. He has been arrested repeatedly. In 2012, he was convicted of drunken driving in LA. He served 13 days in jail. In January of 24, he was arrested on gun charges. Police said he possessed 2 AR-style rifles. He was freed on $50,000 bond on a condition that he would go to a residential drug treatment facility. The agency also said Chavez submitted multiple fraudulent statements when he applied for permanent residency back in 2024 because they say he had a marriage to a U.S. citizen, and that was kind of dicey too. Look, I know all the deportation is a touchy subject right now. However, Chavez Jr. has been an idiot since birth. And like I said, it's rare you find a guy born with a silver spoon in his mouth that then has the drive and the discipline to ever accomplish much. And here's a prime example of that, because he's never been anywhere near the fighter that his father was. Obviously, Chavez Jr. has made some poor choices, and as a result, he's getting sent back to Mexico. We'll see what happens down there. He might be in some trouble down there too. However, hear me out. I am reasonably sure that the fighter he fought, Jake Paul, is a citizen of the United States. But is there any way we could get him shipped out too? I'm not sure how that all works. I don't know how the whole ICE thing works. Is being obnoxious like a reason for deportation? Because if so, I've got plenty of evidence. Jake Paul should be sent to, Serbia or something. Of course, the NBA offseason is full effect, and most of the big name players have now signed. And of course, the NBA draft is complete. We could still see a little bit of player movement here and there over the next few months, but we now have a pretty good idea of which teams have upgraded their rosters and which teams have failed to do so. Right now, let's take a look at the biggest winners and losers from this NBA offseason. And I'm going to give out my first winner because I know that the Atlanta Hawks face some challenges because they have Trae Young at point guard. And winning games with a little guy at point guard can be challenging because you just know opponents are going to target him defensively. And the best strategy to combat that is surround a guy like Trae Young with really, really good defenders at every single position so that they can guard pretty much anyone. Well, the Hawks are kind of on their way to doing that. They've spent the past 2 summers building a pretty good roster around Trae Young. This offseason, the Hawks traded for Kristaps Porzingis, and I realize he's an injury risk, but he does have a high ceiling. And in the process, the Hawks also managed to get rid of Terrence Mann's awful contract, which they never should have tried to do anyway. The Hawks also replaced Karis LeVert, who left for Detroit, with Luke Kennard, who is the active leader in career three-point percentage. This is knocking down 43.8 from outside the line. Pretty impressive. So Atlanta's rotation now surrounds Trae Young with Defensive Player of the Year runner-up Dyson Daniels. You've got some rangy wings that can guard anywhere in Alexander Walker, Jalen Johnson, plus last year's first overall pick, Zachary Risachet. Now you add Porzingis, and you have Onyeka Okongwu. I mean, the Hawks have been really, really bad defensively all this time they've had Trae Young. But this year, they've got a chance to actually at least compete defensively, and we know how dangerous Trae Young can be at the offensive end. Okay, so far, that's pretty good. However, those aren't even the best moves they made. No, the best move the Hawks made was that absolute fleecing the Hawks pulled on draft night when they somehow got the New Orleans Pelicans to agree to move up 10 spots from 23 to 13, and the Pelicans actually paid for it and gave them what they wanted. Now the Hawks own an unprotected pick next year from the Pelicans that will probably be a lottery pick. I mean, the Hawks haven't been worth watching since like 2015. No, this team has my attention. I can't believe I'm saying it. The Atlanta Hawks are one of the biggest winners this offseason. And in the East, that means something. My first loser, I'm going to hand to the Sacramento Kings. Look, I have no idea what this franchise is doing. Confusing feels like an understatement. So the Kings shipped out point guard De'Aaron Fox. Okay, that hurts a little. Well, they did keep both DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. But I'm not sure that's actually a good thing. They'd never win anything. Okay, so let's have the big move that the Kings made. Who's going to solidify this team and make this roster make some sense, right? Well, the Kings went out and gave guard Dennis Schrader a 3-year deal for $45 million. I don't even know what that does. It just gives you another guy that wants to shoot all the time. I mean, the Kings needed like a floor general point guard. Instead, you got Dennis Schrader, who just looks for his own shot and dribbles the ball out. Schrader doesn't pass. That was your big move? You know, I really liked the direction Sacramento was going a couple of seasons ago. They weren't title contenders, but they were at least interesting. Now, I don't even find this team interesting. They get my first loser. I'm going to give a winner, and when I say it, you're going to think it is a homer pick. It's not. Because not only did the Denver Nuggets swing one of the bigger trades of the summer, Michael Porter Jr. and their 2032 first-round pick to the Brooklyn Nets for Cam Johnson. Okay, that's not bad. But they also traded Dario Saric, who is not playing, for Jonas Valanciunas. They also signed Tim Hardaway Jr., and they brought back former Nugget Bruce Brown to fill out that bench that struggled so much in the postseason. Now, the Porter Johnson deal saved $34 million off of Denver's payroll. So that's big. That takes them out of the luxury tax. And I understand there are complications here, because one potential complication is the possibility of Valanciunas returning to Europe next season after reports that he wants to go play in Greece for Panathinaikos. However, let's put that on hold for just a second. We've got to see what happens there, because Valanciunas would have to be waived by the Nuggets, and they would have to buy out the $10 million on his contract. And then the NBA would have to grant him a letter of clearance. Now, if that happens, and they lose the big man, that could spell Nikola Jokic at times, I would lower this grade a little bit. But just based on the whole salary cut from Porter to Cam Johnson, that's a huge upgrade. Oh, and then grabbing Hardaway and Brown, those are huge upgrades. I still think they need a big man. If they don't get Valanciunas, I'll lower this. But the Nuggets have still upgraded this roster significantly. And they lowered their payroll. That's huge. They're a winner. Okay, so if the Hawks are winners because they, fleeced the New Orleans Pelicans, then the Pelicans have to be losers, right? And they are. It was just a baffling decision from that new front office. I don't understand what they were doing. The Pelicans finished 14th in the West last year. And maybe they improve a little this coming season if they just stay healthy. You're not going to move that much. Maybe you can beat the Suns, maybe the Spurs. I'm not sure about the Blazers. I think the Blazers might be tough. And I'm not sure about the Mavericks either, because they all got better. But the Pelicans have to be better than all those teams if they want to even reach the play-in tournament. If they don't reach the playoffs, then yeah, they're going to be sending a lottery pick to Atlanta. And they took this risk to draft a prospect, Derek Queen. Maybe he develops into a star, but he doesn't seem like a great fit next to Zion because both players kind of play the same way. They're big, strong guys inside, but can lineups with both Williamson and Queen on the floor, can you space the floor? Can you defend anyone? I don't think you can. Also, New Orleans traded CJ McCollum and Kelly Olynyk for Jordan Poole and Sadiq Bey. Maybe Bey helps a little, but I don't want Poole over McCollum. That's not a good trade. What did they do in free agency? Well, the Pelicans signed free agent Kevon Looney. We've never seen Looney play outside of Golden State. I have no idea if he can play anywhere else. The Pelicans could be a disaster. And bottom line, can you count on Zion Williamson to do anything other than be fat? I don't think so. I'm not going to count on it. I have New Orleans as a big loser. I will give my final winner, and I will give it to the Houston Rockets. Hey, no matter what else they did, the Houston Rockets were a winner when they went and got Kevin Durant. Because the Rockets went and got Durant, and I know he's not what he used to be, but they didn't give up any of their young talent to do it. However, the Rockets weren't done. They also signed Dorian Finney-Smith, good deal. They signed Clint Capella, give him some depth, and they signed Fred VanVleet to a new contract. They gave Jabari Smith Jr. an extension. They re-signed Jayshawn Tate, Aaron Holiday, and Jeff Green. Hey, this team is now deep. They are versatile, and they can beat you in a number of different ways. The Rockets can beat you with their defense. They can rebound. They've got size. They can be physical. They're young. They have Kevin Durant for experience. I mean, it's crazy to say this, but I honestly think the Rockets are going to be a direct challenger to the Oklahoma City Thunder. This team is young and talented, and now with Durant, they've got a proven veteran and a shot maker. Hey, if KD stays healthy, look out for Houston. They're going to be a pain. I will give our final loser of our winners and losers from the NBA offseason, and I will do so with a bit of a caveat. Because ever since the Los Angeles Lakers acquired Luka Doncic in that insane, bizarre, blockbuster deal, they've needed a center and a rim protector. They lost their previous starter, Anthony Davis, in that Doncic trade. And we know Doncic kind of likes playing that pick and roll game. They don't have anybody to play with him. They were starting Jackson Hayes last year in the playoffs, but JJ Redick couldn't stand him. He ended up kind of being phased out as they lost in that first round of the playoffs. So after they got knocked out of those playoffs by Minnesota, you knew they had a priority. Go get a big man. And a few days into free agency, all the good big men went somewhere else. So who do the Lakers get? DeAndre Ayton. But here's the problem for Ayton. He's a big guy. He can play inside, but he seems to hate playing basketball. He gives no effort. He doesn't really try to improve. In fact, Portland gave him $25 million to go away and not play for them. So now the Lakers have this weird imbalanced roster. They've got a ton of power forwards, Rui Hachimura, Maxi Kleba, Jared Vanderbilt, and of course LeBron, but you have no center, and you have no money to get one because LeBron opted in and hogged up all the money. Okay, so I'm going to give the Lakers a loser. The caveat is that the Lakers should have a bright future eventually with that new ownership. And I hate to say this, but with LeBron eventually retiring, because they haven't upgraded their roster. And other teams, see the Rockets, see the Mavericks, see the Nuggets, see the Spurs, have upgraded their roster in the West. The Lakers were a number 3 seed this past season, but then they got trounced in just 5 games when they finally got there. It will be tough for the Lakers to be as high as a 3 seed this year. That Western Conference is just nasty. I see the Lakers taking a big step back. Hey, remember, you should be stopping by DailyDoseSports.com every week to see what new things we have going on over there. Got links to the podcast. We have links to new articles each week. In fact, if you saw this week, we actually had a WNBA article. I know we sometimes threaten to talk about the WNBA here on The Dose, but we never get to it. But we did actually write an article, so be sure you check it out. You can always email the podcast at dailydosesports@gmail.com if you have some thoughts or some insight to share with us. And remember, you can pick up some Daily Dose gear over there too. If you need a t-shirt, a hoodie, a sweatshirt, maybe a baseball cap, we've got it all over at DailyDoseSports.com. Make sure you're checking that out. Now, as we do so many weeks here at the Daily Dose, we need to get to our Daily Dose Top 5. Okay, I know. We haven't talked all that much about Major League Baseball yet this season, primarily because I want to stay awake while I'm doing the podcast. And also because I want you, the listener, to also stay awake while you're listening to the Daily Dose. But the Major League Baseball season is now just past the halfway mark, and we are starting to sort out who is who. Today, our Daily Dose Top 5 is counting down the top 5 current teams in Major League Baseball. Now, is this how it's going to end up this fall? Probably not, at least based on recent history. But here are our top 5 teams. This is our Daily Dose Top 5 and also kind of a Daily Dose power ranking, if you will. We start off at number 5, and I'm going to give this spot to the Chicago Cubs. Hey, the Cubs had a great offseason. They added Kyle Tucker, and I know that they struggled a little bit under manager Craig Counsell last year at times. But you could see they just might turn a corner, and now it looks like they have. Pitcher Matthew Boyd continues to make a push for an all-star selection. Don't forget, he had Tommy John surgery in 2023. But where the Cubs are really excelling is at the plate, because every player in their lineup, aside from one rookie, Matt Shaw, holds an on-base plus slugging percentage of over 100. Do I worry about the Cubs starting pitching? Yes. But if they can hold up a little and get healthy, hey, the Cubs could be problematic as long as that lineup keeps hitting the way they are. The Chicago Cubs come in today on our list at number 5. We move next to number 4, and we reach a team that we kind of expected to be solid, but maybe not quite this strong. But the Philadelphia Phillies, they just keep churning out win after win after win and stealing series after series after series. You know, we expected the NL East to be a battle between the Phillies and the Atlanta Braves. And that is how it is materializing. But the Phillies just keep winning. And they just keep taking series after series. In fact, the Phillies have only lost one series. And here's what makes it more impressive. They're starting to get healthy. Bryce Harper is now back. He's going to give that lineup a much-needed boost. Pitcher Zach Wheeler had an insane 0.58 ERA in 31 innings during the month of June. Could he end up bringing the Phillies their first Cy Young since the late, great Roy Halladay? If so, yeah, the Phillies are going to be someone to deal with in the postseason. The Philadelphia Phillies come in today at number 4. We reach number 3 on our Daily Dose top 5 teams in MLB right now. And we get to a team that I don't really like, and I did not expect to be here. Because, yeah, they have talent, but the Houston Astros looked like they might be on the verge of sliding down in the rankings, not moving up. However, here's something to think about. The Astros went 19-7 in June behind dominant pitching and dynamic performances from guys like Jeremy Pena and Isaac Paredes. Okay, cool. But they also did it without superstar left fielder Yordan Alvarez, who is dealing with a hand injury. I mean, I thought the Astros might be a playoff contender, or they might just bottom out and crash completely. They're proving they might be a pain. They could actually be a league contender. They are now a half a dozen games ahead of a pretty solid Seattle Mariners team in the AL West. I didn't expect it. But the Houston Astros keep playing well. They come in today at number 3. We move to the number 2 slot, and we get another bit of a surprise. Not that they're a playoff contender. We expected that. But they have looked like they could actually be a World Series contender, because the Detroit Tigers are already pulling away in the AL Central, and they look like they might be the best team in the entire American League. The legend of starting pitcher Tarik Skubal is growing every time he takes the mound. Skubal struck out 13 Minnesota Twins in 7 innings last Sunday. That was the second time this season he has struck out that many hitters while throwing less than 100 pitches. He also did it once last year. For the record, Baseball Reference has pitch data going back to the late 80s, and in that time, Skubal is one of only 4 pitchers to have 3 or more such games. You know who the other pitchers are? Jacob deGrom. He's done it 5 times. Freddie Peralta, Garrett Cole, they've done it 3 times. I mean, at this point, Skubal is almost a guaranteed win every time he takes the mound. Skubal, without a doubt, would be the AL Cy Young winner if the season ended today, and the Tigers would be the number 1 seed in the American League. They come in today on our list at number 2. So we reach the number 1 team on our Daly Dose top 5 teams in Major League Baseball right now. And who else can it be but the Los Angeles Dodgers? The Dodgers remain at the top of the standings, even while they're getting very little from 2 of their most important offensive contributors, Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts. They're not doing much. Oh, and Blake Snell and Tyler Glasnow have yet to join the rotation, and Shohei Ohtani hasn't really played much, and it hasn't mattered because the Dodgers are still sitting on top of the National League, and while they have lost some games this year, and some ugly ones, including an 18-1 loss to the Astros, the Dodgers are still absolutely the best team in the league. And, I mean, just wait till they get healthy. Everyone else is playing for second place. The Dodgers lineup is just too stacked unless there are some kind of major season-ending injuries. Good luck, because you're just not going to beat the Dodgers 4 times. I don't see how it could possibly happen. Hey, don't forget, the Major League Baseball All-Star Game is next Monday night in Atlanta, Georgia. I guess Atlanta has straightened out their voting issues. I don't know. And as long as this MLB season is, we are now starting to figure out which teams are truly contenders. However, we also know there is usually a team or 2 after the break that really heats up, and there's usually a team or 2 that really slides. We will see who those teams might be. Hey, next week on The Dose, I am actually chasing something a little bit special for you. I'm trying to grab a guest that isn't just involved in sports, but is also involved in the world of music and entertainment in a very, very different way. And trust me, he has an insanely interesting story to tell. So be sure you check out The Dose next week, and be sure you let a friend know to do the same. Hey, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for listening to the Daly Dose every week. Thank you for the emails, thank you for the texts, thank you for the tweets, but more than anything, thank you for sharing the show, for sharing the videos, and for sharing the articles. We absolutely love it when you do that. I'd say thank you to JSP. Could not do any of this without you. I will see you all next Wednesday. Have a great week, everybody.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.